Good day everyone, this is John Morbill here, bringing you this tutorial on how this production shot was created in Plasticity with modeling and Liquigen for liquid animation and Blender for setup and rendering. So I'll be attaching the links down below for the download for Blender. You could also try out Plasticity for a month free if you'd like. And Liquigen is a paid program, which is only way to get Liquigen is actually having the whole suite. So that might not be an option for some. But anyway, links are down below. If you want to actually get the final Blender file that was created with the assets included, as well as the Liquigen file and or the Plasticity model file, then you can join my Patreon page, link below. This also includes supporting this channel and the work I do to bring you these tutorials. I appreciate anything you could do. Thank you. All right, let's get started. So we're going to go ahead and go to the top here and click down, and we're going to import the image that I'll have on the link down below. So let's go and select your image wherever you put it, and we'll bring it in. Make sure you're on the front axis here. Once you do that, now we're going to rotate it basically 270 degrees. Type it in, 270, so it's exact. Then hit OK or Enter. Now let's rotate this actual image again. Make sure we're selecting the red section here. Okay, once you got exactly at 90 degrees, type it in, hit OK or Enter. All right, cool. Now let's bring this image up to the ground base of the actual bottom of the actual cologne bottle. So it's actually right on the ground plane. Not the whole image, but the actual cologne bottle itself. Now we're going to select this object here with the object tool, and we're going to scale this up. So it pretty much goes up to the edge of that bottle size on the image. Okay, hit OK. Now let's go and select the face tool. We're going to offset this face and bring it upward, up to the very base of this, so kind of line it up. Once you're satisfied, hit OK. Cool. Now let's bring this top down a little bit with the face tool again. Offset face. I'm going to get it right to the edge there. About right there. Okay, go ahead and OK or Enter. Now let's go to the front of this, and we're going to start working this object. So let's go and select the object tool, select it, and we're going to change the material here so we can see through it a little bit. So we're going to bring it down to 0.1, hit OK, and then go over to the shading thing so we can see through it. Right, so now we can see a little bit better what we're doing. Alright, so let's go back to the top view now, and we're going to look at the design here. And the images that you'll see that there's actually a bevel on the front of this thing, so it's not exactly a rounded area. It has a different shape to it, of course. So anyway, I brought this image now back a little bit further with the G key, and I moved it on the Y axis. Actually, I'm sorry, I brought it back on the X axis. Red is X, the green is Y, and Z is the blue for understanding. All right. And first of all, I'm going to select this section here and bring basically a disc out again. I'm going to actually now scale this in, and we're going to make this a curvature similar to what the bottle looks like. I'm going to bring this down. It's going to cut into part of past this half of the circle. Just try to eye this the best I can here. Now one thing I could do now is bring a line tool out. I'm just going to do a section here, and then I'm going to do the actual radial ray, and that way I can get exactly a 45-degree angle here. So I'm going to use this to help me figure out the placement for all this stuff. So go and select the line tool. Let's get rid of those little lines. So on the left side, go ahead and select those, and they delete them. Same with that one there. All right, now we can actually go in and manipulate this a little bit better. So I'm going to select the line again, and I'm going to mirror this to the other side. So go ahead and select the mirror, hit the left side there so it creates on the other side. Perfect. Now we can go in and start cutting some things out with the trim key. First of all, we're going to bring this down a little bit. I think that looks about right. And one thing we can do now is make sure these lines actually intersect the actual radius of this circle here that's squished. So I'm going to go to this view here. I'm going to get closer. I'm going to go right to the edge of that, but bring it in a little bit. And I'm going to go right on the edge and to that point. Cool. Now I select the previous one and go ahead and delete that. This way it'll actually be easier to trim this. Same thing on the other side. You could always mirror this too if you wanted to, but I'm just going to go do it again. So go ahead and select right on the line here. And I'll bring it up to the actual point. Then right click. Now go ahead and select this section here and delete it. Cool. Now we can start using the trim section here. So let's go ahead to this trim section. Select that section there. And there we go. Now we got a full detail of what we wanted to do. So go ahead and select the lines. Each one of them. So we'll select all three of these. And we're going to hit the J key. And then this one as well, hit the J key. Now we got a one full thing. Alright, so let's go ahead and select the actual main disk here. And we're going to use the cutter. We're going to cut this section here out. So hit OK. Now we can select this section here and delete it. Alright, so now I did a Shift D basically to copy the existing object that we just created. And I'm going to scale this down a little bit. So what we're going to do here is basically going to add in a section within the section and create the inner area. So that way we could actually have like a liquid inside basically. So let's go and keep modeling this thing. As you can see, it's smaller, which is what we want. I'm going to actually go ahead and select the actual sphere section here on the right and pull it out. So let's pull it out. And one thing we don't want to do is have it actually cut into that. So let's go ahead and do this one more time. I'm going to go to side view. Let's do this again. Pull out the sphere. And I'm going to go right up to the edge. Something like that. Hit the X here so it doesn't cut it. Now what I need to do is basically take this object here. So select the object. And we're going to squish this as well. So hit the S key twice, squish it down. So we have a nice little radius there. Hit OK. Now we could bring this up a little bit and down. I want to make sure this is pretty much handling the whole object here. Make sure it covers the whole thing. Hit OK. Let's select that, and then we can go in. Let's make sure it looks good first. I want to double check before we cut it. One thing I could do here, there we go. So we hit the Q key twice basically to cut that, to give it a radius. Alright, so now we got a radius. It's hard to tell here on this angle, but it is rounded. So I'm going to do this again and basically go to red, see what that looks like. It has a rotated bottom, which is what we wanted. Alright, so let's go and select these lines here. I'm going to select basically these two here, plus the other side. See, we're going to select these first. Let's pull that out. So you have a nice rounded edge here on the plus. About 5/8, something like that, 0.58. And now let's go and do these two intersections here. We're trying to give this a nice rounded, smooth feel to it. So let's bring this out. Again, rounded. That's about 4.9, somewhere in there. 0.49, sorry. And that looks a lot better. Now let's go and pull this out. Again, we're going to do this on the plus. So it has a nice rounded curvature. Pull it out. Not too much, just about there. Let's go to side view. Okay, hit enter or OK. Okay, let's go ahead and now get this, and we're going to do the same thing with the top. Make it more rounded on the top. Not too much. Cool. Now let's go back to the side view here. Now we're going to bring a line through this, basically. So what we're going to do is cut half of this away so we can see what we're doing, and it helps us do the actual cutter. So select the main object, and we're going to cut the section away. And we could just basically hide that. And then we're going to bring this down. So the bottom has a little bit higher edge to it than the top. So we're going to bring that up a little bit to give it more of a glass look on the bottom. Something like that. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is do the fillets. I'm not going to do the fillets on the main object yet until I get this somewhat done. Alright, so I'm good with that. Hit OK. Alright, so now I'm going to select that object and this object, and now I'm going to actually keep tool and hit OK for the boolean of that section there. I'm going to hide that side and now unhide the other side and do the same exact thing. So I'm going to hit this section, again hit the Q key, and this time we're going to say OK. We don't need to keep it. This way we got both sides. As you see, it did a nice radius inside, which is what we wanted. Now let's go ahead and unhide both. And now that we've done the cut inside, we can actually merge these together. So let's go and delete these lines first, get rid of that stuff. Now select that line, or this section and that section. I'm going to hit the Q key twice. So QQ. And select OK. This program's real easy to use when it comes to creating stuff like this. Now let's go ahead and select the line tool. Let's select this section here and this section, and again, make sure we select the right one. And just going to pull this out on the plus again. Don't want to go too much on this edge, because this is like the edge that's going to be a little sharper. And then we still got to do the outer pieces here. So select this one and that one. Again, we're going to pull this out on the plus. And we'll get it a little tighter on the end there. Something like that. 0.22, somewhere in there. Cool. Now let's go and select this face here. And we're going to do a Shift D so we can copy it. And we're bringing this up, and we're going to scale this down now with the S key twice. So basically what we're going to do is we're creating a bevel here. Hit OK. And we can maneuver it a little bit more, something like that. Cool. Alright, so let's go and select that face, this face, and we're going to now select the actual loft tool. And we're going to hit OK. Now we got that created. We can delete the other section there. So one thing we got to do is now we got to clean up the bottom. Is too sharp, so let's go and select the line tool again, select this, and we're going to pull this out. Do basically a tight fillet there on that, just to give it some nice edge to it. Okay, so let's go to the top now. We're going to start creating the top section here. So one thing we want to do is make sure we're on the center. Let's pull this out a little bit. We're going to try to eye this the best we can. And I got that line created. I'm going to go ahead and move it with the G key, and we're going to try to get this into the center here. Hit OK. We're trying to place this where we think it should go, basically. Alright, so let's go and select this face. We're going to pull it in. Hit OK. And now I'm going to actually get rid of these lines, and we're going to select the one that we just did. And we got the G key. We're going to pull this out just a little bit, back in, just to get a nice little edge there. One thing I want to do is make sure I cut into the other hole. So we got to look to the side here and see if it actually penetrated. That's what we want, so the liquid can come out. So now I'm on the side view. Just want to make sure. I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. Real close to the edge there is fine. The inner side will be right there, so that's fine. So I'm going to hit OK. Now we're going to actually open up the image now and try to maneuver this properly. Just want to make sure that this is similar to what we're seeing before we cut it. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit. What we're doing right now is we're just going to create a cutter within that section. So now that we got that selected, it's going to select the main object itself, and I'm going to hit the cut tool, and we're going to select that circle, and we're going to hit OK. Now we can delete that inner piece. Cool. Now delete the circle. Now we could actually go in and basically do a Boolean. Basically, this is the inner lid, so the top piece here is going to be bigger than this, of course. That's kind of what we're doing. Okay, now we cut that through. One thing I want to make sure I do here is delete that section there. And I got to make sure I cut through both sections. So we can hide this real quick. Select it. Now we could actually basically hide that. Now we can go ahead and pull this through. Actually, I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and select this and get rid of this. This doesn't need to be here anymore. This is a duplicate from earlier. Just gotta make sure we delete this. So select the object tool, select it, delete it. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do here to solve this is we're going to select basically the disk here. We're going to select the line tool actually. We're going to select the disk. We're going to Shift D it to make a copy of that. Now we can select this object here. Now let's go ahead and get rid of the curve. Select it. Make sure it cut through. It's okay if it went through the bottom. It's fine. You could always have just extrude this and then did a Boolean, but that's okay. All right, so now I'm going to select the main object here in this section here. I'm just going to hit the Q key twice to Boolean together. It's as simple as that. All right, so now I'm going to select this again, unhide it, and basically I'm going to make sure that these are connected. So I'm going to basically make that transparent, see what I'm doing here. All right, so I'm going to select these two sections here. I'm going to hit the Q key twice, Boolean that together. Becomes one. Now I'm going to select this and that. And again, Boolean them. So that's one object. So let's go select this inner piece right here. We're going to pull this out. On the plus, say OK. And we're going to do these two sections inside on top of the lid here. So I'll pull this out. And if you want to open up your bottle, you can have a nice smooth transition there. Hit OK. So now I'm going to create this top piece. And we're going to use a basically 360 degree rotate around this line section that we're creating here. So let's bring the line out pretty much straight. And we're going to cut back here at the bottom of this. Bring it out almost to the edge of the curve. Same with this curve here. Right about there. And then we'll bring it back to the other line. And we'll bring it down straight. If you're stuck going straight, selecting that, you might want to bring it straight down farther in, which is fine. Let's cut it later. So we brought it across. Okay. All right, so now we're going to actually select these points in the intersection here. Well, first we'll bring this base all the way up. Let's bring it up a little bit past the line there, so it gives you kind of like the appearance that it's actually on top. Okay, hit OK. Let's go select this point, and we're going to hit the fillet section here. We're going to do this on the plus, so it's nice and smooth there. And go ahead and hit OK or Enter. And same thing with the bottom one here. Let's go ahead and do it again. Hit the B key. Let's bring it through so it's rounded. Now, if it's not lining up exactly, we can always, once you hit OK, go ahead and pull these points a little closer if you wanted. That way, it's get a little bit less of an edge there, kind of closer to what we are seeing. All right, hit OK. Cool. Now we're going to bring this out just a little bit more. Kind of lines up properly that way. Hit OK. All right, so we hit the actual line tool here. We're going to do a revolve. And we're going to make sure we select the face. Again, let's hit the revolve. And we're going to pull it down. Now, that's not working the way you expect it to work because the line's not exactly centered. So one thing you got to make sure is on the top here, we got it lined up properly. So we're going to bring this down a little bit more. And we're going to go ahead and move this line. Actually, we're going to select this whole rest of this object here and move it. So let's go and select the whole thing. Actually, we're going to go in and basically this is right on the exact axis like you're supposed to be in. Let's go ahead and revolve it. All right, so make sure we select that, hit the revolve, go straight down. There we go. Hit OK. Let's go to the front view. We can do some adjustments here on the points. So select the line here. Let's make that more of a fillet. Bring that up in the plus direction. Hit OK. Same with the bottom here. We don't want a harsh line like that. Just bring it down again so it's nice and rounded on the plus. And then we'll get this section here. Bring it down on the plus. Hit OK. And last is the bottom. These two as well, if we can kind of get them smoothed out a little bit. We'll do that on the plus. And we'll do the same on the other section here as well. So select it, pull it out on the plus. It makes it more smooth. Now let's go ahead and go to the front view again. All right, we're going to go to the Z-axis now. And we're going to unhide everything. Now one thing we want to do is we want this to be centered, so let's go and select the object here. These two sections here, we're going to move that in so they are actually centered as well. So we're going to hit the F key, we're going to bring it right to the center. Actually going to use the snaps here. That's not going to work. So the next step would be to hit the, just line it up, center as much as you can. Make sure we're on the top view here. Just line it up. Of course you can snap it, but anyway, we're good with this. It doesn't have to be exact. Hit OK. Now let's go ahead and get rid of this line. We can delete it. Alright, so now I'm going to select this inner disk section here. I'm just making a copy. So I'm going to do a Shift D on this. Not that one. Let's go with this one. Shift D. And we're going to create a copy of that basically with the Shift D and bring it up. So go ahead and hit the G key, move it up. I'm going to use this as the top piece. Okay, hit OK or Enter. And I'm going to do the face tool here. So select this and bring it down a little bit. And we're going to cut it through the top of this. And then we're going to pull this thing down. So hit the G key and bring it down. One thing we're going to do is we're also going to basically cut in about right about there. So we're going to cut this and have a hole there within the actual lid in case you ever want to use it. So we're going to select this and we're going to go ahead and select the inner object right there and we're going to hit the Q key. So basically we're deleting it. So delete it. Hit OK. Now I can select this top piece here and delete it. Alright, let's see what it's done. So it's cut this piece out. So again, let's select this line tool here, select the inner section here, and pull this out. And again, just a little bit, same thing here. Not really going to see this, so just a little bit. Cool. In case you ever want to take the lid down, and this piece here we got to also do, very bottom here. Something like that. Cool. Say OK. All right. So that piece is done. Now we're going to create a top section here. So let's go to the top view. Bring it in closer. Let's go and pull it out from the center of this. About there. So something like that. Now what we could do is actually use the G key and bring this up a little bit above the top. And we can also now hit the face tool and bring it down. Alright, so hit the face tool. Make sure you select it, and then you can hit the E key, bring it through. Enter OK. Now we can select this part with the object tool and this part. And we're going to hit the Q key, keep tool. And now we're just going to put a little bit of a cut into that. So I'm going to make sure we select the line tool. I can delete these first. Hit the line tool. I'm going to select the top here. I'm going to smooth this out a little bit with a fillet. About there. Hit OK. Now let's do this edge right here. So select this, pull it out just a little bit. This one I'm going to do a chamfer. I need to put a hole on top of this thing, so let's go in to the top view here. Alright, so now we're going to select this section here. Zoom out a little bit. Let's go ahead and pull this out. Let's do a little section to cut this out. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and extrude this through. Hit OK. Select the object tool and this section. Now we hit the Q key and go and say OK. Select the line tool here. We're going to do a little bit of a small chamfer. About there. Cool. Hit OK. Alright, that's it for the lid. Alright, so we're going to go on now and just hide a few of these things with the H key. We're going to select this and we're going to go to the front view here. And we're going to use the line tool again. We're going to cut through this again just to kind of open it up. So go ahead and select it. Go ahead and use the cut tool, cut that section there and say OK. Now we're going to hide one side of this. And the objective here now is to create the intersection here for the liquid. So to do that, we're going to select the intersections of this space. So we're going to select each of these sections as you see me going through this. Let's get a little closer. Let's select this one here. Okay, select that one, this one. Select everything inside basically is what we're doing here. So I'll slow down a little bit here, just get them all selected. Make sure you got them all. I think that looks good, so it's going to be the liquid up to that corner, so it's going to get these little sections here as well. Alright, and the inner piece. Cool. So now we could do a Shift D, and we could move and basically take this and hide it with the H key. Alright, so now we got this object, right? This is your intersection. So now we're going to basically mirror this and close the top, and then we'll have our inner liquid piece. So mirror this to this side, hit OK. And now that we got that done, we're going to merge these together with Q key twice and hit OK. And then now that we got these, well, let's do this again. Q key twice. It's going to take a second. Hit OK. Now it's one object. Cool. Now that we got the face here, just go and select it with the line tool. Make sure the whole thing's selected. Hit patch face. Alright, that's kind of worked. Hit OK. And now we could actually select both of these and join them with the J key. Great, now it's one piece. Okay, so this is your liquid basically inside. This is why we created this. So you can see it's on the other side now. And it's its own object within this object. Cool. Alright, so now we can go in and hide everything. We're going to select these two outer sections and we're going to Q this twice again so they can merge again, back together again. So Q, give it a second and hit the Q again once it's both are blue. And then there you go. Now it's one object. And we have the inner piece as you can see. Alright, so basically earlier I did the name. I actually had company name on here. I decided to change it to brand name. I thought that made more sense. So anyway, same process with the name as it is with the brand. I just create the text. So hit F key, go to text, select brand, and then select whatever font that's available to you. I kind of went through these real quickly and decided to go with a specific one. Alright, so basically I went with the bio rim. I thought that looked kind of cool. So tried this one as well, but yeah, basically went to bio rim. This one with that one. So go ahead and just reduce this down. It's too big. You can always scale it after the fact, but I'm just going to go 0.12 or 0.11 actually and say go ahead and hit OK. Now I'm going to hit the G key And I'm going to move this to the very, very center of this line. This way it lines up properly. This won't work, adding in the snaps. Well, it won't get exactly where it should be, but I'm going to take that off and just kind of line it up by eye. So I'm going to get it right down the center of this. Sometimes you need to zoom in a little bit just to make sure it's perfect. It's off just a smidgen, but that's fine. Anyway, there we go. Alright, once you like what you see, go ahead and hit OK. And we are going to bring this up. And we're going to go about right about there. Alright. And one thing we're going to do is bring this back out. So bring it on the G on the Y. So it's actually in front of it. And now we can select this. One thing we could do is just deselect these other parts. We're going to do with the face tool, of course. And make sure you got the A selected properly and deselect that section there. And now we're going to push it out with the extrude. Hit OK. Cool. So now we're going to select all these. So we'll select it by hand. The delete key. Alright, cool. Now I'm going to actually select the objects with the object selection tool and move it with the G key. And we're going to go basically right into the object here. So once it's all in, each side is in completely. That's the main thing. It's definitely not centered. It's not exactly straight. So we got to kind of bring it through, and we're going to manipulate this. So basically, we're going to select this line here, and we're going to do a Shift D. I'm going to select these objects here, and now we're going to hit the cut tool right there. So we're going to select the line now, hit OK, and now we've cut this out. Cool. We're going to move this out. Hit OK. Select these sections here. Let's deselect the ones on the bottom. Those are the bottom ones. And we could actually now basically delete this back sections. Let's go and select these objects again. We're going to hit the G key or the move tool and bring it in. It's about right about there, not too far in. But right there. Hit OK. Double check the side view here, see what you're looking at. Okay, I'm going to move it out a little bit more. It's not too far in. I think that looks good. Alright, so now I'm going to actually hit this object and these 4 sections because 2 letters are together. So let's go and select those, the object tool. We have to Q, and we need to wait a minute, and then we hit OK. Takes a second sometimes. Actually, it already has cut it, so we don't need to worry about this one. Let's just keep what we have and delete these. So you can delete those. So these are your letters that are inside. Now select all these letters, top and bottom. And we're going to hit the Control G. So that way it groups them into one. So let's select this. Basically hide those 2. Yeah, it's basically inside, so that looks good. Then we can unhide this. You notice that we got the object in the wrong group, so let's go ahead and select this line first and delete it. Let's go back to the group here and just pull it out. Alright, so we got it now dropped in to the solid section. Cool. Now let's go and select this line here, this section here with the line, and we could delete that. Actually, I'm going to boolean this into this object, make sure it's cut in. Now I can hide these. The H key. Yep, so that's cut in. Just make sure it's cut in. That's what we're trying to do here. Alright, so basically now I'm going to just unhide these. Okay, so now I'm going to actually take this section and pull it out with the G key. I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to actually select this edge here. I'm going to copy it. So I did a Shift D. And I'm going to pull this down. And I'm going to actually create the inner piece of the spray tip. So let's pull that out with the extrude. And then I'm going to do a little bit of work on the edge here, just do a little fillet. Cool. And now we can do the same thing on the top here. Select the actual face, Shift D, creates a copy of it, and then just scale this down a little bit. And we're also going to bring this up, and then we're going to extrude this down. So I'll go ahead and select the face again, E for extrude, and we'll push it through. Okay, now it's been created. We can select the object here, and we could boolean it through the other object with Q and keep tool. Now we could actually do a little bit of basically a fillet here. We're going to do a chamfer. It's not going to be shown really, just give it a little edge. And then we'll select the top here. Again, this would also be a fillet, so it's rounded. Cool. And that's all right. So now I'm just going to take this object and bring it down with the G key. Bring it down about right there. And now, go ahead and say OK. Now we're going to bring up the disk tool, select the line, and then we'll pull this out. We're just going to eye this. And then we're going to bring this down, kind of center it. And let's go rotate to the side. We're going to move this out so it's actually past the actual object. And now we're going to say OK. And now we're going to select the face tool, and we're going to extrude this into this object. So it's going to extrude it just a little bit, hit OK. And now select the object, and we're going to use the G key to move this into place about there. Cool. Now we're going to hit OK. Now select that object, this object, and hit the Q key so we can delete it and boolean this thing. And now we're going to do a little bit of the edge here so it's not so sharp. Select it and pull it out. We could do just a chamfer on this one, just a little bit. Hit OK. Alright, that's it for that. Now off to the actual exporting. Okay, so now I'm going to select all these sections here, make sure they're all selected. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the top here and pull this down here and go export. I prefer to go this route. You can always do it through Blender if you want and bring it in that way, but this is the way I always like doing it, but to each their own. Anyway, for this I'm going to basically call it production object 4, and I'm going to send it to a folder that I think is where it needs to go. So I'm going to copy this so I make sure I remember. I'm going to save it. Yes, and then it's going to go into the section here. Now, I normally always go with 1 on this. I also normally go with 0.004 on the minimum width. That gives it a nice edge, personally. You could always do whatever settings you like, but this is what I normally do. And then normally here, I play around with this a little bit. The closer the number to 1, the less of these squares are created. So keep that in mind. So if I go with, let's say, 0.009, it'll be a little bigger. You just do a tab, which is fine. These aren't too many polys or faces when you export it, which will work fine. And the edges are nice and rounded. Okay, you see on this edge a little more sharp, more like a chamfer. I normally like to add a little bit more roundness to these things, especially on a production shot. So I'm going to make this a little bit more rounded. Okay, so in here I'll change that to basically 0.00. Let's go with a little bit smaller number. Let's go with 2. And then we can change the actual minimum width back a little higher. That way it's not so many faces. Right now it's a lot of faces. To help this along, I'm just going to bring this down a little bit, or bring it up actually, a higher number. So instead of 5, we'll go with let's go with 0.05 instead of 0.005. That's much better. And it has a nice little bit of roundness there. I think that looks good. Alright, I guess I've decided to go with, instead of 0.05 to 0.07, make it a little bit bigger. I think that will work. Not too many faces that way. Just gives you a little bit less to work with, but it'll make it lighter. Alright, so go ahead and say ingons and say OK. Alright, now we're going to go to Blender for the next part. Alright, so I'm using Blender 4.1, and I'm going to go ahead and import this object in. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go with the import and go with OBJ. And of course I've already done this work here, so I Control V and entered, and I'm going to go with the last one. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. The scale is what it's going to come out to, whatever the size was there, which is fine. But I'm going to go ahead and change this. Basically, up axis is on the Z, and the forward axis is on the Y. So keep that in mind from plasticity. So I'm going to split by objects, so that way they're all split up, and I'm going to go ahead and import. Here we go. So basically what I got to do now is I'm going to take this object here and going to duplicate this in a couple of places. So basically I'm going to hit Shift D and bring it out, and I'm going to use the actual G key on the Y to move it back, and then a little bit to the X. So again, hit G again, go to the X, just to give it some variations, and then I'm going to make another copy of this for Shift D again, and move this also on the X. Now I'm going to also adjust these as well. Alright, so now I'm going to do a real quick time lapse, speed this up a little bit for the positioning of all these things, just to make it save some time on the video recording here. So I'm just going to move this in. We're going to actually add in one more. Again, hit the G key and on the actual Y and bring it to the back. And now we're going to actually take these objects and basically start rotating some of these to give them some variations so that it looks better. So you can see the side views and things like that, but let's go ahead and hit the G key one more time and bring this up on the Y a little closer. Cool. And go ahead and add in the screencast here so you guys can see my shortcut keys here. Now, if you want to download these files, they're on my Patreon. That's one way to get this stuff. If not, you can always position this after the fact. If you once you bring in a Liquigen file, you can kind of position it, just make sure it's done right. If you want to use my existing Liquigen file, you have to download it. It's an ABC file, which is used in Blender. Again, you have to download it through Patreon if you want to follow along. Anyway, so these are all selected, and this one I'm actually going to rotate to a different side. So let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. Basically on the Z axis, rotate it around. Cool. Now we're going to go ahead and rotate this again after you put that in. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and hit the R again. This time we're going to do it on the Y. And we'll do it 90 degrees. Again, actually put in the numbers here and hit enter. And let's go to the side view here on the Y, and let's bring this up with the G key. So it's actually on the ground plane here. I'm going to bring this in a little bit. Now I'm going to also rotate this thing, so let's go ahead and just try to position to give it some variations here. So this time we're going to rotate it on the Z. So R, Z, and get a nice little look here. Now I want to position this pretty much so it's similar to the other side. So we're going to count the sections of squares here. Each of these squares is like one. So I just want to make sure they're kind of like basically centered somewhat as I design this. Okay, move it in just a little bit more. Right, so basically I'm going to keep the actual settings as is and just go ahead and export out. And then I'm going to bring it in just to see what we got. So when I bring it into Liquigen, I might have to do some adjustments to these objects as I go. So this is the basic startup screen that comes up when you first bring in the first part of Liquigen. And I'm going to actually go in here and open a project that is similar to what I want. And of course you could do all your own settings, but just for lack of ease, I'm going to go to the Liquigen effects under Jenga effects, and there's a pre-alpha section here. This is all alpha, don't forget, so it's not something that's probably used unless you own the suite. That's the only way you get it for now. So anyway, this is the basic dam effect which is what I'm trying to go with. And there's already some objects there, of course, but I don't want to use those. I want to use my own objects to give the proper effect. So after going through this, the objective here is to delete those other shapes within this section here, and we're going to take those out and we're going to replace it with our own. Alright, so let's go ahead and select each one of these and delete them. And then I'm going to pull this out on the shapes here on the collider. This is basically what's going to be affected by the actual water effect, and it kind of affects the water itself. So let's go and bring in the exact object that we did earlier. So wherever you put your file, go ahead and select it, bring it in. Now, one thing you're going to notice is that once you bring it in and the processing is done, it might be too big or too small or whatever it might be. You might have to adjust and then bring it back in again. Just doing a little testing here and there. Test and trial is what you need to do, basically is what I did. So anyway, the settings I'll give you at the end will be similar to what works, but just go ahead and see it's like the wrong direction. Again, that's the first try. And I'm going to go down to the final version of this so I don't waste time. All right, thanks. All right, so we brought the object in. It's too big, so we actually need to kind of scale this down. And, the thought process is it's probably around 75%. Would fit in there perfectly. So the idea is to go back into Blender without having to change it in here and just do it over there. Or you could do it in here, whatever you prefer. But either way, you got to make sure you account for that change so it fits properly. All right, so I imported this. I went back to Blender here, and now I'm going to scale this down in this section. Since I haven't really set up the scene in here, I'm going to go and scale this down. It's too big anyway, but just for the animation, I'm going to keep it the way it is. So I'm going to do 0.75 on the actual X, Y, and Z. And that basically takes 1/4 of the scale down. Same as what's in the other program. Now I could actually select all again and export out this same size. Alright, so let's go and export. And we're going to do it OBJ again. And this time we're going to rewrite over this, which is fine. Select all. And export refront object only. We're not worried about the text string at the moment or anything like that. We're just going to bring it in. Now let's go and pull that out on the collide and just import that object now. And we're going to make sure we select the same folder again. So let's go back to the folder and select the object and say open. Now it's going to come in. It's going to take a second to go through the processing, as you see here. And once it comes through the process, just select all. And we're going to see how this looks. Alright, so go ahead and select all right there in the middle there, and everything's selected, and let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let's go back to the beginning of this animation. As you see, it's more for just testing, but we want to make sure that this fits into that box, or that rectangle that was already created for this effect. That's number one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and play and see how this looks. So as it comes through, it hits, it's pretty aggressive. It's way too much speed, too much volume coming down. So it's causing a major impact from the water. It's like a tidal wave coming in, basically. So we want to kind of dial this down a little bit. All right, so we stopped it here. All right, so I'm going to go to the emitter, and I'm going to change some things. So we're going to take a look at this existing thing here, and this is your shape primitive, and let's go back to beginning. There's your objects. Then everything's fitting in here, but now you can see it when you click on the shape primitive. You'll see the size of this thing. A few things I like to do here is bring this up so it's closer to the base of that. Just so when it comes up, it hits the top of that, not so far. It's pretty much higher up there. You won't see it really. And then the other objective is to move some things. So let's go ahead and bring it down just a little bit more right on the base. All right, so we're gonna do some updates here as well. I'm gonna increase that to like 80 just to see how this looks. I'll do a lot of test and trial as we go through the process. So let's bring it over here. Gives it a little bit more space to react. And the size, we're going to make it just a little bit wider, which is basing on the X. Oh, 15. Now I'll go to the emitter. And here we're going to do some changes as well. I'm good with pretty much everything here. I need to go to assimilation though. Assimilation, if you have this too close to 1, it gets kind of blocky. I'm going to go with 0.01. And I'm also going to increase the number of voxels here to 128. I just think this gives it a lot better look with the liquid. And you can play around with this number to get to where you want it, but all right, so I'm going to change some of the parameters here. We're going to go to the position of this actual shape primitive, basically. I'm going to kind of re-manipulate it. So we're going to go with position 0, negative y 23.915, and on the z 15.987. We'll kind of position this a little bit to the side here. We're going to go to simulation. So in simulation, I'm going to change the numbers. I went to 0.08 instead of 0.05. I think that looked better. It has a little bit more thickness to it. So another thing I'm going to do is select meshing here with the check mark as well as that. So again, you could manipulate this all you want, but make sure whatever you do, it will change everything inside your animation, of course. But again, if you do have the program, I do suggest that you test and just trial and error. So let's go and select the shape primitive and see what we got here. So let's go back to beginning. And I'm going to make sure that this is not a problem. So for some reason it didn't run, so there might be something that maybe it's out of a little bit. So I'm going to get the size here a little bit bigger. So here I'm going to select 18 on the width. About 18.667 I think is what I have it set up to. And here I want to extend it to 120. That gives it more of the back area. This way it's not cutting into it. And then Z, I'm going to go 33. I think that would be good. And 33.6. Now let's go back to the beginning and then let's hit test. First of all, pause it. Go to redo. As you see there, it's actually hit the scenes button here. Now go ahead and push play. And you're getting the effect here as it comes down. And it's being pushed out. And there it goes. So that's a lot better dynamically. It's not too aggressive, at least for the setup that I'm trying for. So go ahead and hit pause. That's about 400 frames to show this. One thing that I want to do here is just get a little bit more of the voxels to show. I don't like the part here where it shows the label, but it's too much of the floor is open. So I'm going to change some of the things on the emitter itself here, just to get it a little bit more. Well, actually, I'm going to go back to the simulation. Instead of 128, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher with this. Let's go with 164. Guess we'll try 164 first, see how that looks. And here it comes. Again, a lot of trial and error. Definitely got more coming through. And again, still at 400, you still see quite a bit of open area there. All right, so I'm going to kind of dial this down just a little bit to 10. And a few more changes. I think that last one was way over aggressive. Actually, I'm just going to go with 10, 10, and 8.4. I think this will look much better. It comes through. This has a lot more voxels as it kind of comes together. Waves are kind of ripping into each other like a raging water, which is cool. And we'll see how this looks when it gets around 400. Yeah, 400 is still looking really good, almost to 400 now. So about 400, yeah, a lot better. You actually don't see the holes. We're looking now for the actual emblem to kind of show where that would be. And thinking that's going to be around 5 something. Basically selected about 558 what we went with here. So now we can see the emblem. So yeah, about 558. So that looks good. I think that's where we could stop it. Now I'm going to pull the mesh out here. And this is the way to export out the mesh. So once you get this open, you're going to actually select a folder. And the ABC file is something that you can use in Blender and I think a few other programs as well. But anyway, I'm going to call this what I think it should be called. Actually, I'm going to call it Liquid Effect. And again, make sure it's going in the directory that you want it to go to so you don't forget. I'm going to call this Production Shot 3. And basically, you're going to hit the export now. This will take some time, so if it's in the morning, drink some coffee or something to keep yourself busy. It takes quite a bit of time, especially depends on the computer, of course. But it's basically going through quite a few frames on a GPU processor is what it's using. And anyway, just does a great job for the alpha. Again, if you don't have this program, there's not much you can do other than just pull in what I have on my Patreon. If not, you don't have, one thing you might not be able to do is just render out this water effect. Anyway, let's go to the next steps of setting everything up. Okay, one thing we need to do here is we need to change this number of frames. We need to change the number of frames to 558 from 64. It's just set up that way. 64 is the original, so we need to change this to 558. Make sure you change that out and then export. All right, so now that I got the actual ABC file created, I'm going to actually bring this in. So let's go ahead and go to File, Import, and I'm going to bring this ABC file in, which is this one. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put down is sequence because that will screw me up at the end here. Until this gets timing better with the newer versions, I'm sure it'll work better. But for now, I'm just going to go with no sequence. So let's import this file. Now you're going to notice that it's way on this side. Your front is here. It's actually the opposite. I imported this in so I could get this to match properly. I actually had to do a minus on this, which turned it around, but for some reason I can't really change the ABC file in Blender. So the trick to get around that is go to Add, Empty, and we're going to bring a plain empty into this thing. And what I'm going to do now is select the liquid first, and then the empty. And then I'm going to parent this. This is a quick way to maneuver this properly. So let's go ahead and parent object. Now we can actually go here and rotate this so it's positioned right. I'm going to go ahead and select 180 degrees because that's exactly half opposite side, right? And that should solve the problem where this is located. Now, when you start bringing this stuff in, it's going to start coming down. And this effect is working properly now that we deselected the sequence. If I put in sequence, it would have changed the whole speed and ramped it way up. Now, if I go to 340, see what it goes here. It was 558 frames, right? So it actually is following the white sequence now. And I would just go ahead and go to 558. I would definitely dial this in, 558. So it's actually at the end of the animation. And then let's just go to 558, see what that looks like. So basically this is your in frame. This is what we wanted. Now if I go back to 530 or something like that, let's see if that changes anything. See, it's actually animating all the way through as it should. All right, so that works out. Just keep that in mind. If you put sequence on, it will change the speed on that quite a bit, and it's better not to even touch that. I just bring it in just like it is. All right, cool. So now that's done. Now, a couple things to note is we definitely want to make this smooth. So I'm going to right click, shade smooth, and that will help it. Another thing that we can do is add in a modifier on this object. And I'm going to suggest that we add another modifier here, which is the smooth modifier. And when I do this, I'm going to select this down to, let's just say, 2. See how that looks, and this will smooth it out quite a bit. And I'm going to put like 4 here and hit enter. This will just make it much smoother transition as it moves. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for this setup, other than, you know, creating the liquid and colors and all that good stuff. Now, I'm going to be attaching both these files to my Patreon, which is this actual object here, and this thing as well as the scene. Now, a few other things to keep in mind setting this up. You want to get the animation going first and know what you're looking for, what you want, and then we'll do all the shading and all that good stuff next. So just keep going with this. Now, one thing, if you notice, is it's really like in a box effect, right? So we definitely want to have 2 planes on both sides that will help basically keep this stuff within the perimeter here, so it looks like it belongs. Now, if you needed a wider shot, then you definitely want to expand that on Liquigen. All right, cool. Hope this helps. Let's keep going. So let's go ahead and add now a plane. So mesh, plane, and we're going to bring this in. We're going to scale this up so we can see it, right? And we're going to rotate this on the y-axis, and we're basically going to do this exactly at -90 is fine, or 90, either one. And then we'll hit the G key, and we're going to move this on the X. We want this to be right on the edge of the waterway. And now I'm going to scale it up, actually on the Y. I'm going to bring this down. Now, a few things to note. I'm going to be using this as a somewhat of a driver to help light the scene. So we're going to go to the Y view here. I'm going to push this up G on the Z axis and bring it all the way to the edge here. Now, if you look at this, you're a little bit off. So let's go and move this on the X. Very perfect. Now, I also want to add in a plane over here, a plane here, and a plane on top. And the objective here is I'm going to add, of course, a plane on the floor. So let's go and scale this up. Let's go and add mesh, plane. Let's go and scale this up. And I'm going to get this big enough so it actually will support this whole thing. I'm going to hit G, and I'm going to move it on the Y. Now, the effect's way back here. We're not going to go that far back, but that's okay. I think this will be fine when you're looking at this. Now, we're going to also take this one, this object here, after get out of edit mode, object mode, and we're going to go to Z, and we're going to do Z. Do a Shift D to copy this. I'm going to bring this to this side. Simple as that. We'll also do another Shift D, and we're going to bring this over here out of the way, and we're going to rotate this basically not that way, but Control Z. We'll go on the green itself, and we're going to say -90 degrees is fine. Cool. Now let's go ahead and go to the Y-axis here, hit the G key, and we're going to maneuver this into place. Something like this. You see it's not, it needs to go up higher, so let's go ahead and hit the G, Z, bring it up. Now one thing I want to do is make sure it fills this whole gap, so let's go ahead and scale this up. So we're going to hit the S key on the X, and we're going to widen that, just like that. Cool. Basically, this object here will be our light, and the rest will be somewhat of a effect. So I'm going to hit this again, G, Z. I'm going to bring this down, up there. Cool. Now, we also want to add in another plane. Let's go ahead and add a mesh, a plane, and we'll rotate it on the X right here, 90 degrees. Tab, and we're going to scale this way up a little bit bigger. I want to completely encompass both sides. I'm going to hit the G key, and we're going to move it on the Y all the way back to the back of this area here. Now keep in mind, I want this to also completely cover this, so we can G key on the Z, just move it up, something like that. Cool. Basically, it's within its own box, basically. Now we can G, Y, move it back farther, not that far, of course, but and then scale it on the X just to get a nice look here, so it looks farther. That would be one way to do this. And I'm also going to hit the scale on the Z, so the whole thing's encompassed. Alright, so let's go ahead and do some changes to the actual, let's go to out of edit mode, we'll go to object mode, and we'll go to shading. Alright, so in here, the objective now is to create some type of dynamic lighting here. So we're going to select this one, and the back one, and we're going to do Control J. So they're all one object basically. And then we can go in here and just say new. Now within here, I'm going to make this a black color. And I'm also going to give it a little bit of roughness so it has some blur to it, just like that. So about 0.116. All right, cool. Now this one here, we're going to add another one. And this one's going to be pure white. So let's go all the way up to white. And again, I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Actually, roughness is good. Let's keep it exactly at 1. That's fine. But I'm also going to create just some variations here. So we're going to add in a color ramp here. Put the caps on. Ramp. And we're going to select this here. And one thing, this is going to help drive this. So let's go and do this. And we're going to add in another color. It's about right here. I'm going to also make this white. And as you'll see here, I'm going to go back to the right location. Actually, I want to put this as cycles, not Eevee. And I want to make sure that I have this selected also on cycles. So it'd be much better looking with cycles, especially with the water effect. And we're going to hit GPU. If you don't have a fast video card, then I would go CPU. But anyway, that's kind of what I do. So anyway, you'll see that we have this thing here. Now we want to make sure that we add in a gradient. So let's just pull that to the side here, hit gradient. And we can help control this way. Now, one thing I could do is bring this black in and see what that does. If I bring this over here, what does that do? So the effect is coming from where? We have to make sure we keep an eye on this. What is it doing? It's going from like a black over here to there, but anyway, what we could do here is if I bring this over and I bring the black in, the whole thing becomes black, right? But if I bring the white closer, it changes. So this is the right effect, but I don't want it so far. I want black mostly over here. And I'm going to bring this white closer to the end here. It gives it some variations and some changes in the shadows. And I'm sorry, not shadows, but shading. So the objective is to make it look differently. And what I could do now is take this color here and bring it into the emissions. So let's go ahead and select this down. Bring this into the color here. And I'm going to add in some strength here. This will really brighten the scene up. This is going to be my light. Instead of adding lights and all that stuff, this will be my light. And what we can do here is we can move it upward if we want. So hit the G key on the Z. We could bring it down a little bit more. Now again, depending on your scene here, we want to make sure that these are covering the sides here. So let's go and select these two sides. And we're going to move this up. G on the Z, a little bit higher. I want to get this in front here. Let's just go and go to wireframe so you see what you're doing. Not the shading mode, but wireframe. Cool. Now, you kind of can see where these are at. So G, the Z, I think we want to make those right about there. And we also want to go ahead and say edit mode. Let's just go ahead and do this real quick. We're going to take this mesh. We're going to actually separate this for now. And we're going to hit the G key on the Z as well. Actually, let's go back out of edit mode, object mode. And we'll hit the G key and the Z and bring this up. So this one's fine. But however, this one's not. We need these a little bit higher. So let's just go ahead and select this. Hit the scale key. And we're going to do it with the Z. I want that higher. Alright, so this will give us a nice lighting effect. Now let's go back to the shading and cycles. And that's going to look really cool once we get this going. So one thing we can do is create some special effects on the liquid. So let's go say new. Alright, so we're going to create and adjust this liquid right now. I kind of want a nice bluish color and something that's going to be see-through as well as just looks nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this right here. So I'm going to select it, delete it, and we're going to start off with the surface. Let's bring this out. We're going to actually bring in a mix shader. So we'll just go with that. And now we're going to actually bring in a glass and a refraction. So let's go ahead and bring in, first we're going to go with the glass. So let's go here. Click in glass. It's a glass BSDF, perfect. And one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to control the color in a minute, but for now, we can go with roughness at 0, and IRR, I'm going to go with 0.8, just for the look here. Cool. Now I'm going to bring this one out, and we're going to call this refraction BSDF, and bring this in. Now, one thing I'm going to do here, again, is I'm going to take the roughness down to a point, let's go with 0.71, and again we're going to go with about 2 on this one. I think this looks really nice this way. Now I'm going to also bring in a color ramp, so let's bring this out, color ramp, and in here I'm basically going to add in a few colors. So I'm going to go ahead and select this here. Okay, so we're going to actually go in here. I'm going to make this HSV, and we're going to change this to hue 0.548. So let's go with 0.548. This will give it a nice blue tint. And let's see what else. Basically everything else is at 1. So let's go and change this value to 1. And this will give it a nice blue. Cool. Now, as you see, this effect is kind of not working too well. That's all right. We're going to add in another one here. I'm going to bring this in. And we're going to pull this over here close to the other side. And again, we're going to do the same thing. 0.548. We'll go with 1 here, 1 here, and 1. Cool. That gives it a nice bluish color. Now I'm also going to take this color and bring it into this here. So that way it's driving both, which is cool. So I think that looks really good. Now, definitely, if you want to change the colors, it's the same type of thing. Just work around it, try to figure the best way to do it. And one thing I'm going to do is take away this black too. I want this more of a grayish color, so it's not too harsh on that. I think that would look good. Maybe a little bit lighter. Just want to get it nice and just a good color tone here. I think that looks good. Cool. Now, what I want to do here is also hide each one of these outer sections and hide them. And I want to select the inners. So all these inners are going to be selected, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to basically bring in the same liquid that we just did. Oh, see, that one didn't go, but these did. That's funny. So same thing here. Select it. Select this one, then this one. It's fine. You could also combine them, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to do each one of these separately. So that is the liquid inside. Cool. Now, a few things to keep in mind is that I'm just going to do Alt H to hide everything now. Now we got to change this so we get a nice see-through glass. And to do that, I'm going to do a new again. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this again. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to use a mix shader again. So if it's not in here, just do add shader, mix shader. Let's bring that in. And now that we got the mix shader, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out with, again, a refraction. So let's go with this, refraction, BSDF. And I'm going to make sure that this is at 0 and this is at 1.8. 1.8. Cool. Now we're going to take this section here, pull this out, and this is going to be glossy. So glossy BSDF. So let's go with this right here. And on this specific one, I'm going to make sure all values are at basically 0. And the last step here is to add in a Fresno. So let's bring this in, Fresno. And I did find this on YouTube, and I don't remember who brought this coloration out for the glass, but very helpful anyway. Always learning as you go. Everybody learns something from somebody. So anyway, that's that. So now I got the glass. This is what I'm looking for, this effect, right? So this will be the same thing. We'll just go ahead and go back here though, and let's call this glass. So this one is material 03. Let's just call this glass. This way I know what I'm doing. Same with this. Glass. This one, glass. A little simple this way just to get everything done. And this one, glass. Cool. Now, if you have some weird artifacting going on because this is too tight in here, just FYI, the objective to fix that would be to go in and just shrink it, each one of these down. And let's go ahead and render this for now, but I'll just show you an example of that. Let's go to layout. I'm going to do a quick render of this. So I'm going to place it here. I'll do a lot of testing as I go through this stuff. Let me just go with this. I'm going to add in a camera. So add camera. Here, we don't need to add lights now because we did all that. And since I'm at this position, I'm going to do Control-Alt-0 to get to where I want to be here. G. And definitely going to do some more adjustments, but for now I just want to do a quick render, see what this looks like. So for testing purposes on cycles, a lot of times I'll go down to like 300. I can go even lower than that if you want, but I normally do 300. And I don't normally put on denoising. I just want to get a quick, really quick rendering of this, so see what it looks like, just for some understanding. If I want more detail, of course, I'll add denoise and other things before I do final renders just to see what it looks like. But just to get what you want to get, don't waste time. Again, this goes pretty quick for my system. I have a very fast card, so if you don't have a fast card, I would suggest going down quite a bit on that just to see what it looks like before you do your final render. Anyway, this is kind of what we're looking at, and I would not go to 4K. I would go to 2K, for instance, or 1K just to get some understanding what it looks like. And I think the overall glass looks good. Now the thing that I did in my other one was I cut part of this out, which I can show you how to do that, just to look like it's laying down and the liquid is proper. And that gives it the effect that it's actually laying inside. We'll go over that in a few minutes. So okay, just go ahead and keep going. So one thing I'll do is each of these, I'm going to go ahead and now turn this on to see-through. And I'm going to go ahead and double select this, and one thing you'll notice is that the link or the actual object point is there, so it's going off the 0 axis on this. What I want to do is I want this to be within this area, so let's go to Object, Set Origin, and origin to center mass. So basically that centers it, right? Now, you could have done this, of course, in plasticity, but if you did not, then this would be another option. You can go in here and hit the S key twice and just bring this down a smidgen. And a lot of times I'll just go like 9.95 or something like that. It just has to be a little bit smaller so it fits properly. So I do Control C. Let's go ahead and type these back all in, Control V. And in here, same thing, Control V. And that's pretty much it. That way you don't have any issues. Again, same thing, go to Object, set Origin, Center Mass, and again, same exact thing. We'll do a scale twice, bring it in. We just do again, Control V, Control V, Control V. This is real simple this way. Same with this one. Again, Origin, Object, Origin, set Origin to Mass, and then we'll do a scale twice, bring it out a little bit, and same thing, Control V, Control V. This just gives a little spacing between the glass and the liquid. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so that's that. And the next step would be, let's go and do the chrome on this. So to get a nice chrome, just real simple, I'm going to go back to shading here. And with this here, I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to say new. And I'm just going to keep the white, that's fine. I'm going to bring this to metallic completely up. And then I'm going to take the roughness down to about 0.077, somewhere in there. About there. I think that looks good. I think the IRR 1.5 is good, and the alpha is good. I think those settings are perfect. And now that I got this, you can do this. Okay, if you're not going to move the objects no more, you just select them all. And you want to select this last, basically, and just Control J. And that way they take on the exact of it makes it one object, basically. And it'll take the last object that was there. Okay, so let's keep going with this. I'm going to go with the top piece now, and that will be its own. Again, you can just do this. Again, if you're not going to move anything, you can always do this up front, so you don't have to do this 2 or 3 times. So let's go ahead and do this. Control J, make it one object. Let's do new. Again, back in here, I want to change the color to like a blue, kind of like a soft blue. Bring this down, kind of like that. Maybe a little bit more this route, a little bit lighter. Something like that. Looks kind of light right now, but that's all right. And we're going to bring this to metallic. That will bring it up nicer, and the roughness down. So it has a little bit of shine to it. Just a little bit, not too much. About right there. And I think that looks good. Now the letters. My suggestion is to hide everything else and then select these. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and hide all this stuff, right? Hide. This way we don't actually select these. We can hide these. We could do this later, but right now, I mean, if you want to do this, this is going to do a chrome. Same thing. If you want to show these off, again, Control J. We can add new again, metallic. And we'll go ahead and go with a roughness here. I think we'll bring it down to right there, nice shiny color, kind of. That looks good. And I think, yeah, we'll just maybe go with a little bit darker, something like that. And then this piece here, again, new. And let's go ahead and do this first. Select all these pieces so they're all part of this. And again, Control J. And let's go ahead and change this to metallic. And we can actually bring this down a little bit different color. Let's go with maybe a lighter color. Something like that. I think we'll go down a little bit more to more of a shiny, more of a chrome look. Okay, so I grouped these by accident, so let's go ahead and do this now. Let's go and select this one, this one, this one, and this one. And we do again Control J. But again, I'm not going to show this for now, and I would put maybe a texture on the circle right there if you really want to dial this in. But for now, let's go ahead and keep going. Let's go ahead and select these sections, whoops, all these here, these, and hide. All right, so we got everything here, right? So let's select one less letter. We'll go with this, I guess, R-A, Control J again. And we're going to, we could add some colors here. So let's go ahead and do new. Now what would be kind of cool, I guess maybe kind of a goldish brand would be nice. Like that. We could make it a metallic looking. Bring down the roughness. That would look kind of nice. I think maybe a little bit more. I think that would look good with the green, right? All right, cool. So now let's go ahead and do an Alt-H to hide everything. And there we go. Now, like what I was talking to you about earlier, is that we want to kind of fix this thing here. So let's go ahead and hide all this. This is what we want. Hide this and this. So I want to cut this here so it's flat, right? I want to make sure that when I do this, it makes sense. Now, one thing you do just to help yourself with looking at stuff, take the film and take it out to transparent. This is underneath this section here, render. That way you don't have to keep seeing that. Now I'm going to just add a simple box, add a box, cube. And with that cube here, I'm going to go to this view. I'm going to say G, and it's going to bring it over to the edge of this, something like that. And I'm going to make sure that we are on the Z-axis and that we can move this over. Actually, this one's still here, so let's go ahead and object. Let's go ahead and hide this one, and let's go ahead and select those and hit the period. That way you can get closer. Okay, so let's take this and the Z, maneuver this better so you can see what you're doing. Hit the G key. We're going to bring it here. Now I want to scale this up. Something like this. G. I want to be able to get the whole thing right. So let's go and take this now down on the Z-axis, and we're going to basically cut this edge off. And I want to have a little bit of separation between that and the glass. All right, so keep this in mind. You want to make sure it's enough. So I'm going to go a little bit more, right about there. Now, my suggestion to make it clean is I'd like to always add a little bit more detail to this box that I'm cutting this object with. So I'm going to go in here and we're going to adjust this. So let's go to edit mode. And I'm going to select all, fine. And I'm going to go to the edge here and subdivide. Again, edge, subdivide. I'm just going to do this a few times. I'm saying like maybe 5-6 times. I want to get enough pieces there to cut it so it's nice and clean. Cool. Okay, great. So now I got this all somewhat detailed out here. I'm going to go back to the object mode. I'm going to select this first and then this. Now I'm going to do a bool on this, which is, it comes with the program. So just keep that in mind. It should be under preference, bool. You should be able to select that on or off. I'm not going to show that to you. I think 1,000 people have already showed how to do this. Somebody wants to know, I could always, communicate, but the bool tool is right here. What I want to do is make sure that this is orange and this is the red. So this is like this is being cut, this one. So let's go ahead and say difference. Once that's done, you get a nice cut. Cool. That's all it takes. Simple as that. Now we can do it Alt-H again. And basically everything is unhid. So that gives it a more of, it's hard to tell at this angle, but it makes this flat right here. You look at the liquid. All right. So a couple things that I need to do here. I think the floor is another one that's not done right. This should be a new floor. Let's go ahead and add in a black floor, completely black. And we're going to make this basically roughness almost down to the bottom. Actually, we'll go all the way down. I want it completely zeroed out. So this is going to take all the reflection from above, the lighting from above, and create this effect. All right, so pretty much that is it for the setup. And of course, you're going to see the actual animation on the front of this whole thing, but I like to place this where I think this looks nice. Something like this. Bring it a little closer. And again, camera mode, I will change that a little bit here. I would go with, because I'm trying to get a good angle on this, I would not go too far, but let's go ahead and do, make sure again, cycles is selected and GPU. And we're going to go with denoising here. 300 is fine for the rendering and animation. Another thing to keep in mind to make this look really nice is to add in a motion blur as well as a focal length. So let's go to camera. We're going to select the focal depth of field actually. So we're going to select the depth of field here. We're going to select this object. I want this to be your main focus. So we're going to select that right there. That way everything's focused. And then I'm going to dial this down a little bit. I'm going to bring this down to like maybe 1.2. And what that does, it helps create the effect of the actual depth of field back in the back there. And another thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring this down to about 40 on the camera. And the only way to really see this is to make sure that you are in the actual camera view. So first of all, let's get in close here. Right about there. I kind of want to make sure that's far enough down. This is something I got to bring down, but let's do Control-Alt-0. And this is your lens here. Let's bring it over. I'm trying to get this kind of centered into this piece. And this one again, like I said, this has to go down, so hit the G key and the Z. Sometimes you notice things after the fact. Okay, hit the G on the Z. Let's go down. I don't want to be able to see that, so go back to the camera. I think the reason is because this floor is not big enough. So let's just go ahead. We're going to scale this up again on this floor on the Y. So let's go ahead and get this nice and wide all the way to the edge. Cool. All right, let's go back to the camera view. Right there. And we're going to zoom in. And there we go. So with the effect going, I think right here would be good. So Control-Alt-0 again. And I think that looks nice. And we can make sure that we can dial this a little bit better. So let's go to the camera. And again, I want to make sure I hit motion blur. This will make the water effect really nice. If you don't do that, it will be choppy somewhat. And then, of course, let's go ahead and go to camera. And I got that selected, this area for the focal. And I want to, I think, f-stop, maybe, just want to blur that out a little bit more. So everything in the back is kind of blurred. I kind of like to bring this in a little bit more. Let's do like, and then we can do the G key with the Y just to bring it back a little bit more. I want too close, I want to give some room. And here's your shot right here. So let's go ahead and select render image and go with it. Okay, so here's the rendering. Now you notice that this is kind of greenish. I would probably add in a little bit of emission on this to pump that up. So shading, go here. Let's add emission, and we're going to go with the same color. So we can just bring this up. This way it actually will be shiny. I would maybe just not to go too far, but I would not go with white. I would go probably with gold again. So something like that. And that will look a lot nicer. Alright, so again, render. Go back to layout. Select render. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and render this one out. Render, image. So basically, you see that it took my render basically about 43.75 seconds to render this out. Now think about it, 558 frames of this times 43 seconds, it adds quite a bit of time. This is your biggest duration, is basically rendering something like this out. So you could also go in, a couple things you can do to help with your rendering to make it faster is, of course, basically reduce the amount of, let's just do some testing here real quick. Let's just say instead of 300, let's do 128. I don't want to go too much farther down than that. And you could also go in here, instead of 0.01, you can get rid of the 0 here. Again, it won't look as completely as nice, but it still would look decent. And this is in our test render, so let's go for it. So basically, by just changing those two sections the way I did, it went from 40-something seconds down to 28 seconds, which is quite a bit, almost, not quite half, but still quite a bit, 37% less, which really, it still looks nice, but that's just another way to kind of hurry these things if you don't have the bandwidth or the power or the time, just to make this better. Another thing to keep in mind too, just one more thing, with this rendering, until the actual wave gets into the screen, I would start maybe about 5 frames before that, just render that out. This way you can actually extend those frames if you want to, but this way you don't have to render, 70, 80, 90 frames back that have nothing. Just it's wasting time. Just another tip. All right, so that's pretty much it. If you like this videos, please subscribe. Please put your thumbs up. It really helps my channel. I want to keep this thing moving. So thanks again for all your support. Thank you.